Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details. Today, a throwback to the early 1990s and the very earliest innings of the Omega brand comeback of that era. You're looking at part of the second series of Louis Brandt special editions. The first was launched in the early 1980s, a little bit of a statement of intent from Omega that it planned to survive the quartz crisis and recommit itself to high-end watchmaking. Well, by the early 1990s, Omega decided it was time to restate yet again, and so another series, the second series of Louis Brandt branded watches, was released. Now, Brandt was the founder of the company that preceded Omega back in the 1840s, and it wasn't until 1894 that the Omega name proper started being used by what had previously been the General Watch Company. So this right here is a tribute to the founder that predates the name Omega, but traces the company to its earliest days. And you can see it is what is known as the Louis Brandt II De-Luxe Chronometer, reference 5311. So this is the Louis Brandt II De-Luxe Chronometer. It's 34 millimeters in yellow gold, which may not sound that deluxe, but this is a watch that places spec and quality above sheer dimensions. 34 in diameter, you could see 9.5 millimeters thick, 42.7 lug-to-lug with an 18 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now, back in the 1990s, they had a sensibility about dress watches, smaller size, more discreet. That feels vintage to us, but the aesthetic of this watch harks back to an even earlier era of Omega wristwatch construction in the 40s and 50s. So this is what you would call new vintage, and it's a tribute to true vintage. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see that this yellow gold watch is strong in profile but small in size, which means it has a lot of personality, but it's not particularly big. You can see the other reference often associated with this watch, 160300, and it's believed that under 1,000 of these were constructed. It's a fascinating watch on a lot of levels because although not labeled chronometer, it is in fact chronometer certified, and you can see that it's low enough to fit underneath any cuff, and it's small enough that it can be worn on a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. So though intended for men at the time, it is very viable on just about every wrist today. Human beings haven't gotten any bigger or smaller, but our tastes have definitely evolved, and this is now suitable for women too. You can see we have an Omega factory strap of much more recent construction, calfskin on the bottom. We have light brown calfskin on the top, a monotone stitch, a sheer cut edge, lacquered for refinement, and it is a brand new Omega factory strap. You can see there were other things done differently in the 90s. For example, the use of a gold-plated stainless steel buckle feels a little bit weird, but it was a different time. And then we've got a watch that has very, very strong lug profiles. For a small watch, it has mighty lugs. We have a little bit of a coin-like edge or knife-like edge to the bezel, which protrudes a bit beyond the caseband. And then the caseback is set back somewhat, so it seems thinner than its measured thickness when it's on the wrist. Taking a look, you can see we've got the Omega logo on the crown. It was 30 meters water resistant, so we'll still pass a 30-meter water test. Some interesting elements here. You can see Louis Brandt's signature on the dial, along with an applique Omega logo, and then small gold circular indices, outboard of stylized Roman numerals, including a watchmaker's 4 and a chemin de fer, or railroad track, for the seconds and minutes, baton-style hands for the minutes and hours, and then a seconds hand that is a counterweighted lancet style. We have a lovely curtain of stamped guilloche on the dial, and it is stamped guilloche, but Omega gives us a lovely little nod to aesthetics with a faceted step-down window to the date. It's not a sheer cut-through, it's slightly sloped, and the watch features 2 setting modes, one of which is hacking or stop seconds, and the other of which is the quick set system. Turning it all over, you can see here we have a case back over what Omega calls caliber 119, but it was a early example of the ETA 2892A2, and it's automatic winding with bidirectional winding action, 4 Hertz, 21 joules, stop seconds, quick set, the 42-hour power reserve, meaning that if you wear it daily, you don't need to wind it. It's quite Successful in that regard, meeting its goal of being an everyday reliable companion, a dress watch to be sure, and a certified chronometer. And you can see that it's all gold gilded with a Omega logo on the rotor. Of course, it says right here 119, though if you look at the base plate, it has both the ETA stamp and the 2892 reference caliber or base caliber reference engraved, but it's nicely done with snailing on the edge of the bridges. You can see solarization on the rotor center, a little bit of striping. You can see striping as well on the bridges, snailing on the outer bridges. We've got both blued and polished screws present. It is a lovely watch and a rare one, very hard to find. Again, this watch, alternately known as the 5311 or the 1660300, scarce things, and this one's in particularly good condition. Although the series was made from 91 to 97, you can see here that we have an example of a pre-August 1st, 1995 Swiss gold hallmark with the Helvetic woman's head as opposed to the dog that came later. So this one would have been made between 1991 and the summer of the mid-1995 transition. 1995 was the transition, August 1st, 1995. So you have a pretty good idea of when this was made. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.